Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. It's been a long time. We've had the past 3 weeks that The Horizon has not been on air for a variety of reasons. It's a pleasure to be back, and I hope we are all doing well. Let me start by extending my greetings to our friends and family who reside in neighboring La République du Cameroon, those who are in refugee count, those who are refugees in Nigeria, Ghana, and other parts of the world, and those of us that are in the diaspora. Welcome to the Horizon, and I hope you all doing well. I'm going to start the program by discussing something that is not related to the show today until our guest is situated. We have a guest that is just the perfect person for the program we have today. We'll be talking about the journey of America 250 years after independence, and how that relates to Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. So the topic exactly, if I have to read exactly what it says from declaration to recognition, lessons from America's 250-year journey, and the future of Southern Cameroons. That's going to be our main topic today, which you can see on the screen. But before my guest comes up, I just want to seize this opportunity to read something that I wrote, and I hope it will touch some of you that are watching this program. It says the topic of the piece is an inspirational piece. It says the lone conscience. Growing up in West Cameroon during the lone conscious. Growing up in West Cameroon during the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s, I often ask myself a painful question. Why do so few people who lived through the same history remain committed to the struggle for the freedom of the former British Southern Cameroons? Why do I so often feel like a lone conscience speaking about injustice that many have chosen to forget? So this question that I ask, some of you may ask the same questions because you may also feel like a lone conscience in your families, in your communities. And so bear with me as I read on, as we wait for our guest to come on. Oh, she's here. Perfect timing. I'll keep that for another day. Welcome on the show, Professor Bridget TEBOH. Let me use this opportunity to formally introduce you. I wrote something down here, but I got distracted with what was going on. Here we go.
It happens.
All right. We are on. All right. Professor Bridget TEBOH is an associate professor of history at the University of
not
Massachusetts.
associate.
I'm sorry, as a professor of history. Sorry, dear. As a professor of history at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. She holds MA in African Area Studies and PhD in African History from the University of California, Los Angeles. Yay, where I am. Her research interests are colonialism, post-coloniality, historical biography, African diaspora, women's power, and historical ethnography. Dr. TEBOH has also written quite a few books on ruling mothers, combative wives, rituals, women, and change in Cameroon grassfields. Um, so, without making this very long, I want to welcome you to the Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. You've been with us before, long, long time ago. You've been on this
Yes.
program. It's been a while, so I'm really thrilled that you are here to talk about this topic, from declaration to recognition, lessons from America's 250-year journey, and the future of Southern Cameroons. Because I think you are the perfect person to discuss this. Thank you so much. Let me give you a moment to say hello to everyone here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, my patience. It's always a pleasure to be here. And like you rightfully said, I've been away for quite some time because of demands of work and other things that take me out of the country. Having said that, I'm actually very delighted to be here. And I must say, I am a full tenured professor at the University of Massachusetts in Dartmouth. I teach history, I teach Black studies, I teach women's history and world history. And so that gives me an open platform to compare and contrast things and see where we can benefit from some of this knowledge to apply to Southern Cameroons. I want to thank and greet our fellow Southern Cameroonians or Ambazonians who are tuned in today. Want to shout out to our ASAs who are doing a wonderful job, and to all the women who have been pushing our struggle forward. Of course, not to ignore the power men behind this struggle. It is always, always a pleasure to be here, and I'm hoping that we will learn one or two things today that can move us forward as we journey towards Boya. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank
Horizon
you so
team and
much.
ABC.
Thank you so much. And it's really our pleasure having you here today. So let's just delve, since we started the program late. So as America celebrates 250 years since its declaration of independence, this may sound like a broad question, but I'm sure you're going to hone it down. What universal lessons does its journey offer to peoples around the world who aspire to self-determination today? What did the American Revolution Why did the American Revolution succeed? What role did diplomacy, leadership, and international alliance play? Which lessons are timeless and which are unique to the 18th century?
Huh. That is actually a loaded but very interesting question because it actually captures the essence of all what we're going to be discussing. And so the very first lesson that a declaration, or very first lesson that I want to share is that a declaration is only the beginning. America declared independence on July 4th, 1776, but recognition developed gradually through diplomacy, through alliances, through war, and through negotiation. In fact, we just finished celebrating 250 years and July 4th independence in Massachusetts, where I am. It barely ended yesterday with the tall ship parade, with ships coming from Europe and North and South America to participate in the parade and celebrate. And so there is something to be said in terms of lessons learned or lessons that we can incorporate. Having said that, they declared in 1776, July 4th. Now, that recognition was not easy to come. Morocco, an African country in North Africa, became the first country to recognize the independence of the United States on December 20th, 1777. Sultan Mohammed III opened Moroccan ports to American ships and treated the new republic as an independent nation. Very interesting that it was an African nation that recognized them first. Then France became the first European power to formally recognize the United States and enter into treaties of friendship and military alliance with the United States on February 6, 1778. French military, financial, and naval support became crucial to the success of the American Revolution. Britain, the former colonial power, did not formally recognize American independence until September 3rd, 1783, through the Treaty of Paris. Now, this sequence, simple as it may sound, is very important. America first declared its intention to become independent. It then gained recognition from another country, secured a powerful international alliance, demonstrated its ability to survive, and finally obtained acceptance from the colonial power from which it had separated. The American Revolution succeeded, therefore, because the colonies combined several strengths. They already had local assemblies, courts, commercial networks, newspapers, and political experience. They created a common leadership structure through the Continental Congress and benefited from both military and diplomatic leadership. George Washington was not renowned for doing just one thing. He helped to maintain unity and accepted civilian authority. Benjamin Franklin and other diplomats secured French support. Their experience shows that no independence movement succeeds through passion alone. Yes, passion, but independence movements cannot succeed on passion alone. It must build internal institutions, understand international interests, and develop strategic alliances. Another lesson is the importance of a clear political message. The Declaration of Independence explains the grievances of the colonies and the principles behind their struggle. Modern movements must also explain what they seek, why they seek it, whom they represent, and what kind of society they intend to build. America's experience also contains warnings. The country proclaimed equality while slavery continued. That is a no-no, because it means that equality that was proposed was faulty from the get-go. Indigenous people were displaced, and women lacked political rights. A movement cannot credibly demand freedom while denying same freedom to others in the same society.
Right.
The central lesson is simple. Freedom may be declared in a day, but recognition and responsible nationhood require unity, diplomacy, disciplined leadership, international relations, and institutions that protect everyone. I think that is the lesson that we can get from that journey. Thank you.
Wow, that is really a lot of information. So just a recap, you mentioned 4 things. You mentioned that the intention is there. The first thing is there's the intention to have independence. Then you may gain recognition from other nations, and then you start forming alliance. and then you get accepted by the body that
Yes.
independence. So for the United States of America, how long did that period take from when they had their intention to when they were really recognized?
Well, from 1776, when they declared that independence, to 1783, when Britain formally recognized the United States as an independent nation. So a couple of years.
Yes. Drawing to the Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, we declared our independence really on the 1st of October 2017.
17, yeah.
Right. And we are still on that path to get international recognition. How do you compare what has happened between those with us and the United States of America? What advice do you have for us?
Okay. The sequence is similar, but the differences also abound. And the main similarity is that both histories involve questions of consent, political identity, constitutional authority, representation, and the relationship between a people and a larger political system. In both cases, historical context matters. Political grievances cannot be understood without examining the agreements, the institutions, the legal arrangements, and expectations that created the political relationship. The major difference is the path each territory followed. The American colonies declared their independence directly from Britain. They fought a war with an imperial power. They created common institutions. They obtained international recognition and alliances, and eventually secured formal acceptance from Britain, albeit sluggishly, through the Treaty of Paris. Now, Southern Cameroons followed by Britain under a United Nations trusteeship agreement. In 1961, its population voted in a United Nations plebiscite that was supervised by the United Nations to achieve independence by joining the already independent La République du Cameroun, or French Cameroons. Now, the Southern Cameroons question, therefore, must be examined through the history of that plebiscite, the terms and expectations of that union, the federal constitution, later constitutional changes, and the principle of self-determination. And so we cannot dissociate the Southern Cameroons question from that plebiscite. International law does not treat every grievance as an automatic right to separate statehood. Self-determination may also take the form of federalism, autonomy, decentralization, constitutional protection, or democratic reform, all of which have failed woefully in the case of Cameroon versus Southern Cameroons.
Right.
The useful lesson from America is not that the two cases are identical. They are not. The useful lesson is that political legitimacy, leadership, diplomatic strategy, international engagement, and institutional preparation are essential. America, therefore, offers inspiration and principles, but it does not provide an exact legal template for Southern Cameroons. I think that answers that question.
It does. It does. Thank you so much. I'm going to have a short break now for us to see a video of the American Revolution so that people know exactly what transpired. This is just a very short video
Okay.
to put us, give us some directives. So if
Yeah.
that video is ready, can we have it now, please?
First, because of the fact it led to the formation of the United States, a country whose economic and military power has been felt across the world. The Massachusetts Minutemen who fired the shots heard around the world at Lexington and Concord likely had little idea of the eventual influence that their rebellion against British taxation would have. Secondly, the causes that the revolution came to represent: liberty, representation, freedom, and independence laid the foundations for social democracies for the following centuries. Famous figures such as George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams could not have foreseen the almost holy reverence with which their words have been treated since. While the effects of the revolution may not have been immediately revolutionary, it's clear that the 13 colonies' struggle for independence from British rule has had a significant and lasting impact. As with any revolutionary moment, it's vital to take a step back and examine the causes and progression leading up to the eventual British surrender in 1783. Most studies of the American Revolution trace its beginnings to the 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763, a conflict with the French over territory that ended with a British victory. The 7 Years' War solidified Britain's stance as the most dominant European country in the world, as it gained vast tracts of land in the process. However, as Britain tried to increase control of its American colonies in a variety of ways, colonists began rebelling. The expensive conflict had led to new and unpopular taxes. The British government attempted to raise revenue by taxing the colonies, first with the Stamp Act of 1765, and then with the Townshend Acts of 1767 and the Tea Act of 1773. This led to increasing resentment. The colonists felt that these taxes were unfair since they were being taxed without any representation in Parliament. The growing protests posed a simple question: why didn't the colonists have the same rights as British subjects? Two events in Boston in the early 1770s fanned the flames of resentment further. First, in 1770, colonial resistance was met with violence at the Boston Massacre, in which British soldiers killed 5 men after opening fire at a protesting mob. Second, in 1773, in response to the Tea Act, a group of Bostonians boarded British ships and dumped 342 chests of tea into Boston Harbor. These acts were catalysts for more resentment, as a vicious circle of retaliatory punitive measures from the British government only served to further enrage the colonists. Massachusetts and the New England area was now seen as a hotbed of rebellion, and the stage was set for an escalation into war. A group of delegates decided to meet in September 1774 to see what could be done about the situation. The First Continental Congress included the likes of George Washington from Virginia, as well as John and Samuel Adams from Massachusetts. They did not demand independence at this first meeting, but they did issue a declaration of the rights due to every citizen, including life, liberty, property, assembly, and trial by jury, a forerunner for what would come later. They were frustrated by taxation, Continental Army, with Washington as commander-in-chief. Thus began a series of battles throughout the fall and winter, starting with the Battle of Bunker Hill in Boston. Though it was a victory for the British, these early skirmishes actually supplied encouragement for the lowly colonial forces, giving them inspiration for the fight ahead. With more trouble brewing, as early battles didn't bring any conclusive victories on either side, the colonists cemented their position on July 4, 1776. Women, men without property, and slaves were all not considered to share these inalienable rights. Nevertheless, this was the revolutionary beginning of what would be a long, imperfect process toward the democratic republic we know today. As the colonists were declaring independence, the British were sending a huge fleet with 34,000 soldiers across the Atlantic to crush the rebellion. After this point, the Revolutionary War settled into a pattern of wins, losses, and stalemates for the next several years. Military history enthusiasts can enjoy the tales of Washington retreating across the Delaware River before launching a surprise attack on Christmas night in the early stages of the war. or can reflect on the turning point through 1777-78 at Saratoga. The American victory at Saratoga was crucial as it paved the way for France, sensing British weakness, to enter the war on the colonist side.
Well, thank you so much. It's longer than I thought. We have Professor Bridget here, so she has more details. I thought it was a short video, but it's longer than I thought. Prof, are there anything you want to extract from the short video to just remind us how this war of independence started for the United States of America?
Well, the important thing to note is that Massachusetts is the historical bedrock of that American independence struggle. And sites like the Boston Tea Party or people like John and Samuel Adams, who are indigenous to Massachusetts or natives of Massachusetts, shed more light on that process. And carrying on, we know that taxation has always been a problem for people, even those who are not protesting. If your taxes are being used for purposes that do not suit you or do not help you in any way, or are going to other people, then you are bound to rebel or question. And that is what this also shows us. If you are collecting taxes or making people pay high taxes and not even throwing some crumbs for them to also enjoy, then we have a problem, especially because they are the ones doing the work. And so that victory at Saratoga allowed the revolution to carry on, opened the space for France to intervene and therefore enable continued victory for America that was struggling to stand on its 2 feet. And so it is interesting to see how all of that combines and links up to that declaration and the ongoing pursuit of that self-determination. Like I said, America offers an inspiration and principles, but it does not provide the exact legal template for Southern Cameroons, because as much as they have similarities or commonalities, they also have different trajectories and different paths to follow. And so a declaration, like I started off saying, of independence does not automatically produce recognition. And there is a difference between declaring independence and receiving that recognition.
Wonderful. Okay. Let me go to my next question as we tackle this subject. History shows that recognition of new states often depends on more than declarations, just like you said. What political, diplomatic, legal, and practical factors influence whether a territory eventually gains international recognition?
Okay, that's a good one, because you can have all the passion in the world, you can shout at the top of your lungs, but that is not enough. There is a difference between declaring independence and receiving recognition from another country, forming formal diplomatic alliances, gaining acceptance from the former colonial power, controlling territory, and becoming a member of the United Nations. Those are key ingredients to having that international recognition. The American experience illustrates these distinctions very clearly. The United Nations declared independence in 1776. Morocco recognized it in 1777. France formally recognized it and entered into an alliance in 1778. With that in place, Britain had no option than to accept American independence through that Treaty of Paris. Recognition, therefore, develops through a couple of stages and depends on several factors. The first is legal credibility. Legal credibility. A movement must present a serious historical and legal case based on treaties, based on constitutions, based on United Nations decisions, boundaries, and documented agreements. The second is democratic legitimacy. Other countries will ask whether the political objective genuinely reflects the will of the people. They will examine whether women, young people, minorities, civil society, displaced persons, and opposing voices in particular are also included. Number 3 is governance and capacity. A proposed state must show that it can protect civilians, that it can maintain order, that it can administer justice, collect revenue, provide essential services, manage its borders, and meet international obligations. Very important. The fourth is conduct. Conduct is important. Violence against civilians, intimidation, kidnappings, attacks on schools, and political assassinations severely damage international credibility. We do not want that. A movement must demonstrate respect for human rights during the struggle, not merely promise those rights afterward. The fifth, and I think that is the last, I'll keep it short. For Southern Cameroons, regional support is the fifth condition, regional support. For Southern Cameroons in particular, the positions or stance of Nigeria, our largest neighbor, neighboring states, the African Union would extremely be important. Oh, last but not the least, the sixth is global geopolitical interests. Global geopolitical interests. Governments will consider peace, security, trade, migration, natural resources, investment, and the wider regional consequences of recognition. For Southern Cameroons, therefore, a credible strategy would require unified and accountable political representation, a strong legal case, evidence of popular support, a commitment to peaceful and lawful methods, and a realistic plan for governance. It would also require negotiations over borders, citizenship, pensions, public debt, security, natural resources, and future relations with French Cameroons or La République du Cameroun. That is our closest neighbor. A declaration, therefore, attracts attention. Recognition requires confidence that the proposed state would be peaceful, democratic, governable, and regionally responsible. Thank you.
Wow. So thank you so much, Prof. I may still hone on this question to make it more connected to Southern Cameroons, because when I asked the question, it was more a general question, and you've answered it. You gave six key points. You talk about legal credibility. You talked about democratic legitimacy, governance capacity, conduct, regional support. So perhaps I want to ask you this same related to Southern Cameroons. Where do we stand
Oh,
as far
absolutely.
as these factors are concerned?
Where do we stand as in right now what these 6 recognition stages are?
Yes.
Well, if we look at the first, which is legal credibility, you can
Yes.
bear with me that we have made our case on the international scene. Everybody knows that our fight is legit. We have the legal backing, we have the documentation and evidence to prove that we have a reason to fight for self-determination. In terms of the second one, which is the democratic legitimacy, where we may have other countries worried if our political objective is genuine and reflects the will of the people. The answer is yes. We have been at this for almost 10 years. We have the people behind us. That means this political objective, the pursuit of self determination, is a reflection of the will of the people, because we are striving to build a nation where everybody, women, young men, minorities, displaced people, will be included. That is our goal, because after 60 years with La République du Cameroun, that has not happened.
Yeah.
And it is time to move beyond that. It is time to move beyond playing the victim or crying and do something about it. 60 years is enough evidence packed in the plight of a people that needs the attention of not only those people, but the international community. I don't want to drag somebody like President Traore of Burkina Faso into our discussion, but that is a clear example of how African nations have suffered at the hands of their ex-colonial masters. Cameroon is no exception. But the difference is that Burkina Faso decided to do something about it. President Traore decided to do something about it.
Absolutely.
And within the 3 or 4 years that he's been in office, you can see with your 2 eyes what is happening in Burkina Faso. You can see that for a nation that is in the Sahel, which is mostly desert, they have agriculture thriving. They have irrigation to help women cultivate their farms. They have infrastructure that is going up. And the question is, how can we sit in Cameroon for 60 years and wait for manna to fall from heaven when it is possible to do those things in 3 or 4 years, as the case of President Traore shows us? And so while we have that, we also want to be conscious that it's not all struggles that are successful. Now, I can name 1 or 2 nations that have struggled to break apart and have had challenges. We have the case of Southern Sudan, that the powers that be and the international community keep referring to. Oh, look at them. Now they had what they wanted, but they can't function. And so what we are saying is we are not going to be like that. We're going to take the positive route, because our democratic legitimacy is founded on the premise that equality that we seek is for everyone. The innovations that we seek for our nation will benefit everyone. And so we have legal credibility, we have democratic legitimacy. Now, the third one that I would go back to is governance capacity. A proposed state must show that it can protect its civilians, can maintain order, it can administer justice, That is what we are already doing. As a government in
Absolutely.
exile, we are
Right.
capable of governing our territory. We have the capacity, human capacity, to do so. We have the natural resources to meet international obligations from day one if recognition comes. And we also can manage our borders. And so the issue of governance capacity is a no brainer for us. We have the intellectual capacity, we have the economic capacity, we have the political capacity to manage our territory very well. In terms of the vote, and we have to look at conduct because violence against civilians has been almost transformed into a norm in our territory, not by us, but because
Yes.
somebody else decided that they were going to declare a war on us. The president of La République du Cameroon declared a war on us and expected us to sit and be run over. It hasn't happened. And so the violence keeps escalating because Southern Cameroonians or Ambazonians have a right to self defense. The violence is escalating also because you have rogue agents paid by the corrupt Republic of Cameroon sent to infiltrate Southern Cameroons and create mayhem and blame it on Southern Cameroons so that the international community can label us as terrorists or bad guys like they want to do. Unfortunately for them, it has failed because whatever they're doing is now open air. Everybody knows their tactics, everybody knows, and they're just waiting for them to tie a noose around their neck because all their tactics have failed. And so our movement has demonstrated that we respect human rights and we want to start respecting human rights and stop all those rogue behaviors now during the struggle or our own version of a war of independence, because that is exactly what it is. We declared our independence and now we're fighting to establish the parameters and principles that guide universally for people to have a state. And so we can do that. We can start doing that now so that when that recognition comes officially, we carry on. It will be more difficult to start then. So we've started now. We know what to do, and that is what is happening. Now, in terms of the fifth one, regional support, it will be good to have that regional support for Southern Cameroons, neighbors such as Nigeria and other countries surrounding us, or the African Union would be extremely important. Unfortunately, while government is playing games with La République, at least the people of Nigeria understand that what is happening in Southern Cameroons is not right. Brilliant minds and lawyers in Nigeria have defended our leaders who were captured and thrown in jail. And so while there may be a little discrepancy between government policy and what civil society and lawyers and other intellectuals are doing, there is hope that yes, regional support will be good for us and we will get that regional support. Because slowly, even the government of Nigeria is beginning to see. I was privy to a conference that I attended in Nigeria, and the issue of Southern Cameroons came up. And most of the intellectuals were surprised. They thought the issue had ended. And I said, no, it hasn't ended. And we are still at war. And you are sitting here as intellectuals, as lawyers, as medical doctors and historians, claiming that it is over. It is not. And one of the people was a close friend to the vice president of Nigeria at the time when our leaders were picked up, the Naira 10 were picked up from Nigeria illegally and smuggled into Cameroon. And so I was sitting there when a direct call was made, and that vice president swore up and down that he has no clue what happened.
Oh.
Which means also that while maybe the president may have had talks with La Republique's president, or some greedy generals in the country had been contacted with a lot of money, which is what they usually do. Bribery and corruption is the norm in La Republique. Those generals may have acted on their own. And so there is hope that, because that triggered an investigation actually. So there is hope that in the near future, we will have regional support. Because while that regional support is important, we also cannot sit and wait for it to happen. We will keep doing what we're doing and hope that it happens sooner or later. And the sixth and last one is that global geopolitical interests. Every government, regardless, wants peace, wants security. Every government wants to trade amicably with other partners. Every government wants to invest in a country that has peace and can guarantee safety and security. And that is the wider regional consequence of recognition. We have the resources, we have the capacity, we are willing to have other partners to trade in our commodities. And so it is a win-win for us to keep doing what we're doing. And so that is specific for Southern Cameroons. Yes.
Thank you so much. I really wanted to bring that comparison in place so that people understand exactly where we are. And you did answer my questions thoroughly. Moving along, and this also has to do with Southern Cameroons. When Southern Cameroons is internationally recognized, when that happens, I don't want to say if, I want to say when, because we believe it will happen. When it happens,
it will happen.
What institutions would need to be established from day one to build a stable and democratic nation?
That is interesting. That is actually deep, because right now everything is a problem. Everything needs fixing. Everything is a priority. But having said that, the first principle is that no leader, no movement or armed group or political party or diaspora organization would own that new nation. It is a nation that will belong equally to all its citizens. And therefore, we will need all hands and feet on deck. Now, the first requirement would be a temporary constitutional charter. Very important. It should define the powers and limits of the transitional government. It should protect fundamental rights, separate the branches of government, place the security forces under civilian control, and establish a clear timetable for elections. That is very important so as not to create chaos and mayhem from day one. Now, a representative transitional legislature would also be needed. It should include different regions, women, youth, professionals, even traditional authorities, some of whom have been severely delinquent during our struggle, civil society, business leaders, displaced communities, and different political viewpoints. That representation is crucial to make everybody feel welcome, everybody feels included, and also realize that their voices are being heard. The independent judiciary would also be essential to protect rights, to review government actions, to prosecute crimes fairly, and resolve property and commercial disputes. And so these things are important. And so those are the first three. We also have a professional civil service that would be needed, professional civil service to keep schools open, to keep hospitals functional, to make sure that utilities, customs, transportation, and local governments are functioning and serving the people. Very important. And so that professional civil service is very important. We also have the need to have an independent electoral commission. And that commission should create a reliable voter register, regulate political parties and campaigning financing, and organize credible elections. This is important because right now, I don't remember any real elections in Cameroon.
Never.
Whatever they call election is a farce to deceive the international community and to maintain a dictator in power for 40 years with nothing to show. Utilities, everyday power outage. People cannot even buy food in bulk and save for those who manage to have a refrigerator because power goes out every 2 seconds.
Right.
The state of the roads are horrible. The other day I watched a YouTube clip with somebody carrying a corpse on a bike, struggling and falling in the gutter and mud. It is absolutely appalling. The next thing is security reform, which will be critical. Security reform. Various armed groups could not remain under private command. There would need to be a lawful process of disarmament, demobilization, screening, retraining, and rehabilitation and reintegration. That is the best way to secure the borders. That is the best way to maintain law and order in the country. So security reform would be crucial as well. Now, I've been talking all kinds of institutions yet. Strong financial institutions would be required. Strong financial institutions would be required. Institutions that function properly. Institutions that you can depend on. And including a treasury, including a revenue authority, including an auditor general, a procurement authority, statistical agency, and an independent anti-corruption commission. I know we hear the word thrown around every 2 minutes. Oh, anti-corruption has done this. Oh, they're investigating that. Nobody is ever brought to task or question about the excessive corruption that has been going on in the country. You know, now we would not want to resort to what other countries like Singapore did when you were caught. But it is something that deterred members of government and even ordinary citizens from stealing and looting and being corrupt. So strong financial institutions would be required. We also have local government must be constitutionally protected so that power does not simply move from one centralized capital to another. Local governments, or our LGAs as we have now, will be empowered and protected to function properly. We also have the need for a human rights commission and a truth and reconciliation committee that will be instrumental in the smooth transition and running of a new state. And so the first duty of a new state, therefore, would not be to reward those who led the struggle, like some may be tempted to think. It is not to reward those who led the struggle. It would be to protect citizens, restrain power, preserve peace, and build institutions strong enough to outlive the founding generation. Leave institutions that people will happily inherit. Not what we have now that everybody is grumbling and complaining about. Institutions that are transparent. Thank you.
Thank you so much. When we were talking, I realized that was it last year when we had the Ambazonia strategic conference? I forgot the real acronym. The
ASPA, yes.
the blueprint of
Yes.
of what our nation. So we've already done some legwork. We've got have something already ready to assist us when the time comes. I just wanted to throw
Exactly.
that conversation. You were in Washington
yes.
D.C. when that took place a few years last year, really.
I was. Yes, it was last year. I had the privilege
Yes.
of being there, and it was serious work. We do have that
Yes.
blueprint already in the works, and we have an accompanying expanded manuscript that one of us, is Dr. Mungwa, is working on, and that volume is actually
Yes.
titled Ambazonia 2050 and Beyond. Now, the title already speaks to the character and expectations of what we need to do. And so that will be an incredible volume to have or to add to our adventures in self-determination. It's getting bigger and bigger. It went from one volume to two because it is getting too big. It captures almost everything that we've been talking about in terms of what to expect or what to do or how to continue making sure that, our struggle doesn't go to sleep. Yes, it has all of that. Thank you.
Yes, that's really significant. I want to thank Dr. Munga for that great job, because it makes us ready from day one. Because sometimes when you have an opportunity, you don't want to start saying that, oh, what do I do next? You already have the solution ready to go.
Yeah.
So we'll be ready on day one. Thank you so much. I just want, before I ask the last two questions, I want to take this opportunity to introduce a video, because one of the things you mentioned was democratic legitimacy, and we just want to explain where that legitimacy began. There was a video when we declared our independence, where people came out from all over in our region. Let's see that so that we remember exactly how this started. That video was from
Exactly.
AB. And I just want us to see it so that we remember.
Okay. That's a good one.
What we want is for France to back off. They should leave our own system. We have a proper means to organize our educational system. We have proper means of our health system. It's a time for freedom. They colonized us, and now is the time. We were mental slaves, but now is the time we are spiritually positive. And the fight is bigger than they can think. The fight is bigger than they can think. Now is the time.
So this is really the coffin revolution, the beginning of the coffin revolution. Prof, I don't know if you want to say something about this and relate it to the American independence, the revolution, rather.
Yes. I it's so funny because in our culture and tradition, when you see people come out with a peace plan, what we call the gang, you know that they come in peace. And that is what that protest was. They came out in their numbers, carrying peace plans. And the response of government, as usual, was to send soldiers with riot gear as if they're going to war to attack the young people who were just protesting and asking for basic rights and necessities. Instead of giving them a listening ear, they decided to use brute force. And so that, from that moment, led to other people joining the coffin revolution. Market women joined because they're like, okay, if our children were just marching and naming all the grievances that they want fixed, and they're being brutalized, what more of us? And then shortly after that, we have teachers and lawyers who also joined to complain. Those are reasonable intellectuals, adult people who also wanted justice, wanted things to be changed, wanted reforms. It's so funny because at that time they were calling for a return to federalism, which La Republique outright denied. And instead of listening to them, they decided to brutalize some of these lawyers, threw them in the mud, removed their cassocks and caps, which is an insult. Of course, today they are begging for that federalism and nobody is listening to them. And so that can be related to the Boston Tea Party that we had here, where people had enough. They're like, okay, if you are not going to listen, we grew the tea, we do the sales, we're going to burn it or throw it in the ocean. Then you will not have a penny of it. That is exactly what happened. And from that moment, something that was meant to reform a nation, to fix things, to unify, escalated into an open war. And of course, the absentee president of the country, who was not even there when that was happening, returned from one of his stays abroad. That is the only president in the world who goes away for months on end and people don't know where he went or why he went. It's not to serve the country. Came back and had the audacity to stand at an airport and declare a war against those same people who were peacefully marching, demanding for change, demanding for reforms. Now, if they had only listened, we wouldn't be where we are today. If they had listened and made real reforms, things would be different. But by pushing Southern Cameroonians to the brink, it was time, because everybody's like, okay, enough is enough. If our mothers, our children, and our lawyers, who are the voice of the people, representing the people in a court of law, if they can be brutalized and thrown in the mud, then what will happen to the average Joe or Janet. And that is where we can relate to what happened in the United States of America. We can relate to how people are pushed so much that they decide, okay, enough is enough. And that is the case of Southern Cameroons today. From that basic steps, those demands have morphed into outright demand and declaration or restoration of our statehood. And so it is left for them to continue to work towards that recognition by others. Well gone. And so many people in La République du Cameroun still have their heads buried in the sand. But the majority of them know that Southern Cameroonians have gone, have left, and will not be with them again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are running out of time. I had two questions, but I think you've answered one of them already in terms of what you just said. So I'm going to just ask this question, which is really a closing reflection.
Okay.
250 years after Americans' Declaration of Independence, what message of hope, patience, and responsibility would you offer to the people around the world who continue to pursue political aspirations through peaceful and lawful means, especially Southern Cameroons?
Okay. Okay. Message of hope. Message of hope. Well, there is always a message of hope, but before I get to the message of hope, let me just quickly summarize the top priorities that we may need during the first 5 years. Now, the first priority must be national reconciliation and civilian protection. I'm not going to expand on that. The second priority would be constitutional government and institutional integration and integrity. The third will be, let me see, the country must restore the economy and livelihoods. And so when we talk about those financial institutions that must be functional, it ties in with the need to restore economy and livelihoods, because small businesses, farmers, professionals, displaced people have been so disrupted in their daily lives that they will need to restore their livelihoods and economy. Now, the fourth basic priority is simple: infrastructure and human services must be restored. We need infrastructure for things to move ahead. The fifth is the Republic must secure international legitimacy and constructive relations. And so this is already going into that message of hope that we want. And so, to put it mildly, therefore, the message of hope to offer people pursuing peaceful and lawful political aspirations, such as Southern Cameroonians or Ambazonians, is that history can move slowly without standing still. History can move slowly without standing still. I say this because people are getting so impatient. Oh, when are we going to do this? Oh, when are we going to do that? History cannot be rushed. It can move slowly without standing still. America declared its independence, like I said before, in 1776. It received early recognition from Morocco in 1777, and formal French recognition and alliance in 1778. But Britain, that had colonized America, did not recognize American independence until that 1783. Even then, the work was not complete. The United States still had to build a constitution, reconcile competing interests, establish public credit, and prove that the new republic could endure and take care of itself. And so hope, therefore, must be joined to patience. But patience does not mean passivity.
Right.
Patience does not mean passivity. It means using the time to organize better, to educate citizens, to document history, develop institutions, and prepare leaders, build democratic relations, and protect the moral credibility of the cause. A movement should become more disciplined as the years pass, not more divided. It should be more disciplined as the years pass. And then responsibility. So there is hope and there is responsibility. Responsibility is equally important.
Right.
Political aspirations do not excuse harm to civilians, hatred to other people, misinformation, corruption, or the silencing of disagreement. We disagree to agree. So that should not be something that you use to harm others. The means used to pursue freedom shape the society that may follow. The means and methods that you use shape the society that may follow. If a movement cannot respect dignity, cannot respect law and accountability before recognition, it will struggle to protect them afterward. I had mentioned this before. And so people, therefore, should remember that international actors rarely care about a cause as deeply as those who live it. Yes, they may care or they may seem to care, but they cannot care as deeply as those who live it. And so
Right.
Southern Cameroonians or Ambazonians are stakeholders in their own freedom. External support may help, yes, but it cannot substitute for internal unity, for credible leadership, for lawful conduct, and a practical plan for government. We already have the structure in place. From the counties to the local governments, we have everything set out. And so the world must be shown not only a history of injustice in our case, but also a future worth supporting. And so the American journey teaches that declaration can awaken history, but institutions, well established, well run institutions, carry history forward. And so the responsibility of every generation is to leave the cause more truthful, more human, more organized, and more capable than it received it. And so hope is not the belief that success is guaranteed. It is the decision to continue preparing responsibly so that when opportunity comes, and it will come for Southern Cameroons, a people are ready to seize it and use it wisely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. You have been amazing. We started the program late. I'm sure if we had time, this is a topic you can even go in for a great 2 hours and give us so much information. I am going to promise to bring you back on the horizon sometime in the near future when you are opportune, when you are available. You said
You know what they say, catch me if you can.
Exactly. And there's something that you said in your closing remarks that I just want to echo the words of the late JF Kennedy, who said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what can you do for your country. And I think you mentioned this when you said it, when you're saying that we just don't sit and wait. We have to be prepared to work hard. And one more thing also that is hopeful, because we already had this experience of political, economical greatness. We had institutions in the past that were active and institutions. So it makes us believe that when the time comes, we will be able to handle things with the expression like a piece of cake. it will be very easy because we've done it
Absolutely.
before. So before I let you
Yep.
go, well, I just want you to give your closing remarks, and then we'll conclude the program today.
Oh, thank you so much, my patience. It has been a pleasure. At least this was like a break from all the madness going on in my head, and so this was a welcome break. And I'm happy that I was able to at least shed some light on a few things and help our people understand that the stakes are high, that our revolution is strong, our diplomatic inroads are better than before, and the road to Boya is definitely getting wider and shorter. We want to take this moment again to thank everybody on the Horizon team, to thank ABC TV, to thank all the supporters who have joined the bandwagon of that journey to Boya. Not all of them have, but those who have not yet seen the necessity of why we are fighting are either in denial or they are waiting to see how they're going to benefit from everything that will happen. Ambazonia will be free. Ambazonia is free. We just need to maintain what we're doing, and everything else will fall in place. And so we don't need to rush. We don't have to worry about the naysayers. Ambazonia is free. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Till
so
next time.
much.
I'm Bridget
Till
TEBOH.
next time. Thank you so much. Hello, viewers. Hello, listeners. This is the Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. It's again our pleasure to have presented this program today. As I mentioned in the past, my schedule is not as consistent as in the past, so I may not be able to come on the program every Friday like in the previously. But I want to reassure you that whenever the opportunity comes, we will be on the air. So stay strong. Like Professor TEBOH said, we are free, and we are free, and we are free. Till next time, have a great weekend. I believe next week, tomorrow Saturday, we have the Manu draft. So please come out to support the people of Manu. Again, till next time, have a great weekend.